All right, baby birds. I'm here to feed you with your week 2 matchup previews. Here we go. I know you guys been waiting for it. I was 4 of 5 last week on my picks for the league, so my accuracy is historically pretty strong. I'm going to look to keep that rolling this week and try and take personal feelings and thoughts out of it when I'm analyzing this. So let's start with the grudge match. Tony, the Cheesehead champ, versus OJ's Revenge, Chris Snooky Mancusi. Tony, you have a group of overvalued, overrated players led by Lamar Miller, Kelvin Benjamin, Travis Kelce, Russell Wilson, all guys that you drafted just because, oh, well, this guy's ranked too high to still be here. But they're all terrible players. So you got a problem there. The other major problem you have is you got some really tough matchups this week. Shady at Carolina, Dalvin Cook at Pitt, Jordy Nelson versus the Falcons is a tougher matchup than you think, not because the Packers aren't going to score on the Falcons, but because Jordy Nelson's going to draw all-world corner Desmond Trufant and shadow coverage most likely, and that's just not a good situation for a 32-year-old wide receiver to be in. So I don't expect a whole lot out of him. Mancusi on your side, Mariota versus the Jags. Dude, the Jags D is for real, but it's still your best option because what are you going to do, play Carson Wentz at Kansas City? You can't do that. Odell Beckham Jr. is returning against the Lions. What was your man Odell doing? He's caught on the dance floor in a dance competition 3 days before missing the game last week. Odell Beckham Jr., another horrible human being, terrible, just awful. Hate Odell Beckham Jr. I'm sure you hate him too, but you won't admit it because you're a Giants fan. But that guy's clearly a jackass. Devonta Freeman, from a terrible guy to a great guy. Devonta Freeman ought to shred the Packers defense. He ought to have a big week. Love you, Devonta. Pulling for you, buddy. Giants kicker D combo. Once again, Chris, it's stupid. I'm going to tell you this every week until you fix it. It's dumb. Stop doing it. Your defense is not that good. Your kicker is awful. Let's just move on from there, okay? Can we just please do something about that? Mancusi, you deserve to lose this game. You do, because you keep trotting out the Giants D and the Giants kicker. But I'm going to pick Snooky Mancusi winning the grudge match this week in a low-scoring game just because Tony's matchups are horrendously bad this week. So Snooky Mancusi, congratulations, week 2 W. In the Toilet Bowl preview, two of the worst teams in the history of fantasy football, managed by two of the worst managers in the history of fantasy football, Damaged Goods versus Cash Me Outside. So you got Jared versus Steve. So this is going to be a bit of a revenge situation for Tom Brady. Tom Brady, if you go by the theory of mean reversion, should throw about 800 yards and 8 touchdowns this week. Basically, Brady and Gronk are going to Gronk you, Steve. They're going to Gronk you into the ground. Tyreek Cohen is basically a younger version of Darren Sproles. He doesn't need to get 20 touches to be successful. If Tyreek Cohen gets 10 to 12 touches a game, he's going to put up solid fantasy numbers. Terrence West, though, Jared, is not even the running back to own in Baltimore. You could have had him for free. I picked up Javarius Allen, Buck Allen, at a free agency for nothing. You could have had him. Probably should have done that. Devontae Parker and Jarvis Landry are absolutely unplayable. And the reason is it's not because they're bad receivers. It's because they're playing the Chargers this week. Casey Hayward and Jason Barrett, the best tandem of shutdown corners in the league, other than maybe Harris and Talib in Denver. Just absolutely dominant defense against the top two wideouts. So you're gonna have a problem there with Parker, and if you decide to play Landry, it's gonna be awful for you too. Devontae Adams could have a day. We already discussed how Desmond Trufant's likely to draw Jordy Nelson in the matchup, which means he's not going to be covering Devontae Adams. So I like Devontae Adams. I like Randall Cobb to both have big weeks this week. Now on to Steve's team. Steve, your whole team's garbage. I mean, it's just a giant dumpster fire. You have the only player you really have is AJ Green, and you should be shopping him to try and get multiple players in return, because that's the only way you're going to salvage this season. DeMarco Murray looks old, slow, and a lot closer to the Eagles' DeMarco Murray than he does Cowboys' DeMarco Murray. The real question for your team is this the week Jordan Reed goes on injured reserve? It might be. We'll see. He already has a broken toe, so we'll see. Brady and Gronk are going to lead Jared to a rare win. Congratulations, Jared. Damaged Goods picks up the W, which is not something you're going to see very often this year. But Brady and Gronk lead Jared to the W. Pack Attack versus What If in the most irrelevant game in week 2 in fantasy history. Two guys that we know are just completely out of it, have no shot of making the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is off to his usual slow start. I don't know why every year you draft Aaron Rodgers and you don't draft a guy to play the first couple weeks that's got an easy schedule. I don't know why you do this. You know the deal. You know he always sucks for like the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season, and then he goes nuclear after that. But you keep rolling with him, and he'll keep sucking for the first few weeks, and you'll be out of it contention by the time he starts doing well. Michael Thomas will bounce back versus New England. And the reason is because New England is apparently the worst defense in the history of football. I don't know if any of you watched that Chiefs game last week, but guys were just, they weren't tackling. They weren't in the right position. They looked dazed and confused the whole game. And it's not as if the Chiefs are a powerhouse offensively. Randall Cobb, I expect him to have a good game this week, but still he sucks. He's a terrible football player. Isaiah Crowell sucks. You should have traded him. You could have had Jacquizz and Doug Martin for him. How stupid do you feel now turning that down? That was just, wow. I'm so glad you did that, because I would have been in trouble. I would hate to have that turd on my team. CJ Anderson's awful, and he's a fantasy cancer. Tyreek Hill has to play an actual defense this week, so we'll see how that goes. Baltimore should feast on the Browns, though. The defense should feast on the Browns. But that being said, your number one running back is the Browns running back. So tough luck there, I guess. Don Julio is going to bounce back this week. I have a big week against the Packers at home. Fitz should perform without DJ, especially against that terrible Colts defense, even though Carson Palmer can barely get the ball to him. Joe, you don't have a QB on your entire roster that's worth rostering. From Andy Dalton to Alex Smith to Sam Bradford, none of them are worth having on your team in a 10-team league. Those are guys you would expect to have if you were in a 16-team league or so. And it's week 2 and you're already carrying 3 quarterbacks. Man, that is not a good look, brother. Demaryius Thomas, the most overrated wideout in football. We've been over this at length. I don't need to go into that anymore. But look out for Cameron Brate the Great this week. He's going to have a great opening week against the Bears. I expect Brate to get into it, to splash the end zone this week, maybe to the tune of about 60 yards in an end zone splash. I'm going to say Joe Rebounds takes this one, only because it's the upset of the week, and it's only because you got to be wary of a team that only scored 45 points the week before. He's just bound to have some positive regression here. He's just bound to. So next we have hashtag first round bust versus Big Brown, and it hurts. Reese versus John. Sorry, Reese. No David Johnson. Your team sucks. Without David Johnson, your team sucks. That's just what it is, and it's through no fault of your own, really. You losing the number 1 overall pick is really, really tough. Fournette, though, looked solid. and he's going to get huge workloads. McCaffrey, however, and I would have thought this would have been the other way around, but McCaffrey's going to be a bust. He is going to be a very solid real-life player, but not a great fantasy player this year. I'm expecting now about 800 or 900 total yards and maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns from him, and that's your RB2, so that's a rough situation. Jameis to Deshaun could bail you out in theory. John's team's got Brown versus the Vikes, which is a tough matchup, but he's Antonio Brown and he's playing at home. Jordan Howard, tough to trust, tough matchup with the Bucks. Ezekiel Elliott in a tough matchup against the Broncos. Again, screw you, Ezekiel Elliott, horrible human being, and basically can't believe that anybody would even have him on their fantasy roster. It's, in any event, Seattle D will feast on the Niners. John's going to win this one, and it's not going to be close. I think you all know that. Reese, I think even you know that. John has an absolute powder keg of a team this season. So he's not going to put up 140 again, but he's going to win this one. So on to the final matchup, myself versus Jason. Follow the Buzzards versus Judge Fudge. This is just a complete mismatch. On paper, I should win this game by a ton. Drew Brees will shred the Patriots. They have a JV squad defense, and they made Alex Smith look good. So if Alex Smith can go for 360 and 4 TDs against them, what do you think Drew Brees is going to do at home in New Orleans? Brandon Cooks in a revenge game against the terrible Saints defense. Expecting Brandon Cooks to go off, especially Danny Amendola out. He's going to draw some extra targets. He's going to have a big game. Doug Baldwin and Graham in a get-right game at home against the Niners ought to be pretty good. Bell has a tough matchup with the Vikings. But like I said with Antonio Brown, it's Le'Veon Bell and he's playing at home. So he's going to do just fine. In the flex, are you going to face Ingram or are you going to face Quiz? I haven't decided yet. But either way, they're going to dominate. Carson Palmer, broken down shell of his former self. You know this. His top weapons out now. What do you think it's going to get better without David Johnson? Stupid quarterback play. Terrell Pryor, slow start continues versus the tough Rams defense. Evans and Melv Gore will do well. I do think Mike Evans has a big game against the Bears. I think that Melvin Gordon has a big game against the Dolphins. But Rob Kelly is fat and he's awful. That's just what it is. Austin Hooper will be an absolute bust this week. Jay Stu is okay, but whatever. The real story in this matchup is the most epic kicker battle in the history of our league. Justin Tucker versus Steven Gostkowski. Battle of 2 years ago's #1 kicker and last year's #1 kicker. Let's see who wins this thing. Bottom line here, you're going to get curb stomped. This is going to be the blowout of the week. And winner, Commissioner Fudge. So there you go, guys. I am heading to Atlanta this weekend to watch some football and celebrate Ben's, my brother's son's, 3rd birthday. So if you guys need me, you can always hit me on my cell phone. See you guys later, and good luck this week.